This is the reason why you should buy. And we're not asking the most important question, the reason why it was important for them, in their heart of hearts. Like, that's a sale. Then we're going to see results, the mindset, going into every opportunity, saying to yourself, I would love to have the business, but I don't need the business. When they talk about building their organization just through referral, that means they're missing it. We're selling the experience. We're selling the reason why it's important to your prospect. The internet almost shut down because they're like, are you blind? Do you not know what's going on out there? Do you not see what's happening?
You just did 250,000 cold calls. Congratulations. Jeff Bajorek, so glad to have you on today. Are you kidding? This is great. Starting the week off right, starting the year off right.
That's right.
Thank you. Thank you for attending the Pipe podcast today. Hey, I'm your host, Crispin Cruz. On the Pipe, we always talk about, Jeff, process, initiatives, prospecting, and experiences as it pertains to sales. So great to have you on today. And just, hey, I'd like to jump right into it if that's okay.
Sure.
I think humble beginnings, or maybe this is just where you reside today, is in Novi, Michigan. Let's talk a little bit about about you, about your company. Just kind of give our listeners and viewers like a nice overview of Jeff Bajorek and all the exciting things you're doing, Jeff.
Wow. What am I doing right now? Right now I'm building out and continuing to develop a concept I call Sell Like You.
Right.
And what I've realized over the last 5 or 6 months, as I've sat down, I kind of recognized this as my own take on what it means to be a true professional, what it means to sell with authenticity, what it means to reach your highest potential. I've realized that you really have to bring yourself to the to your methods, to your process. And methods and process are two words that get often interchanged, and I think they're actually completely different. I think the process of selling is the science; it is rigid, but the methods is what are what represent the art of what we do as salespeople. And we've always known that sales is a combination of art and science. But I think I was talking to a friend of mine last year, and he kind of broke down that dichotomy, and then I made that connection. And what I've recognized with my clients, what I've recognized in myself over the years, is that there are these periods where I run into what I feel are roadblocks. I just can't get to that next level. And what has occurred to me is because when I get stuck at those levels, I am stifling some part of my intuition. Wow. That is trying to lead me in the right direction, but I'm trying to talk myself out of doing that. Yeah. And that's where my reminder is. It's like, look, you are the secret ingredient to your own success. And the longer you stifle that, the longer you are holding yourself back. So that's in a nutshell, kind of what I'm getting at with Sell Like You. I want to encourage people to pay attention to that voice in their head. I want to encourage people to pay attention to that feeling in their belly, because it has never led you wrong. Yeah. And it will not lead you wrong. And the more you try to be like someone else, the more you are holding yourself back in what I call championing mediocrity. If Chris, if there was one way to do it, and everybody did it, even if it's better than what you're getting right now in terms of results, it would still be, by definition, mediocre.
Right.
So
right.
With salespeople who are out there striving for mediocrity, and they don't think about it that way, which is kind of a funny way to point it out, right? They don't think about it that way. The worst part is that it's probably still better than what they're getting right now. So when mediocre is still better than where you are right now, we have a problem. But if mediocre is your goal, we have another problem.
Yeah.
And I want to encourage people to look, we're capable of better. Why not do it?
That's right. That's right. And so let's talk a little bit about your book. I mean, and this whole, concept and this whole approach of Sell Like You, kind of touched on it a little bit, just in that first, in these first couple minutes. But, how do you get out of that, Jeff? Like, how do you break yourself out of that? If you start to feel that way and your gut's telling you, man, you got to go in a different direction. I mean, what are some of the tips that you can, talk about today?
Well, I think it starts with a mindset shift.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, you have to decide to trust yourself. Now, salespeople, we have been programmed from the from the word go, from the very beginning,
Right.
to try to make our prospects, our customers trust us. And everything we do, and you see it with the mass emails and the mass prospecting efforts that go out now today with this quote personalization. Your merge tags are not personalization, right? But
Right.
every sales rep out there who's trying to prospect en masse, so to speak, is
Mhm.
trying to convince their prospects that they're not being prospected to en masse, right? Like let me show you how not robotic I am, right? And it's the wrong approach, right? But the thing is, I've never met someone who's skeptical or not interested in trusting someone
Mhm.
who isn't somewhat untrustworthy themselves.
Right.
People who are trusting tend to be very trustworthy. And
Mhm.
I think if sales reps would stop trying to get everybody else to trust them
Mm.
and just start trusting themselves,
Yeah.
that's where that shift occurs, right?
Yep.
So we get into this, I call it a vicious cycle, right? Of
Mhm.
mediocrity and fear and shame, right? And so
Right.
you doubt your own abilities, you're trying to get better, you look for some blueprint, you look for some cookbook, you find it, you put someone else's methods into play for yourself, and
Mhm.
you get mediocrity, right? You say, well, that didn't work as well as I wanted to. Let me go find another one. I must have gotten the wrong playbook, as if there's a right one. But anyway,
Right. Right.
and
Right.
so now you do that a couple of times, you never get great results, nothing quite fits. Now you start to feel
Mhm.
ashamed and you
Mhm.
start to wonder, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm not cut out for this.
Mm.
Maybe I just suck at this. And
Right.
maybe there's no hope for me. And I think we can all agree that shame is not a very good place, not a very good mindset from which to sell. You're not
Mhm.
going to have your best success being ashamed of who you are and what you do. And so
Mhm.
you have three options when you get to that point where you recognize you're ashamed. You can accept mediocrity as success. And you know what? Mediocre results are still typically better than average results, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
you can do okay. It hurts my feelings a little bit, but okay, whatever. You can accept mediocrity, or you can move on. You can say, maybe this isn't the right fit. Maybe this isn't the right job. Maybe this isn't the right career.
Right.
And so you just try to kick the can down the road a little bit and go do something else. But anytime you try to level up, you're going to run into this cycle. It happens.
Mm.
And so what you're doing there is just tolerating mediocrity in multiple planes, right? It's, well, I'm
Right.
never going to be more than mediocre here. Let me go try this. I'm never
Right.
going to be more than mediocre here. Let me try another thing. Now you're just, that's mediocrity at scale, right? Your
Yeah.
third option is to make a change. Your third option is to start trusting yourself. Your third
That's
option is to say, there's something that's driving me to do this. Maybe I should look inward. Maybe I should try to
Mhm.
figure this out. And then when
Yeah.
I recognize when people do that, is they change that shame, they change that doubt into belief. They have some thread of belief in themselves that says, I've got to be onto something. I know the pieces of the puzzle fit together. They're here on the table in front of me. I just have to be patient enough. I have to be diligent enough. I have to be committed enough to figure out how I can put them together to make a beautiful picture.
Yeah.
And when you do that, when you believe in yourself, you start to rethink the way you sell. You start to think, well, maybe I need to think about what needs to happen and my own ways of doing it, right? And what needs to happen, that's the sales process. That's the rigid science of it. How do I accomplish that sales process? That's where my methods, that's the way I perform my art. And
Mhm.
when I believe enough in how I do it, and when that belief comes from the alignment and the integrity of what I'm doing, who I'm doing it for, how I'm
Mhm.
doing, and why, well,
Yeah.
now we've got some momentum going. And that belief leads to your best execution, your best performance, your best results. And when those results reaffirm your own integrity and alignment, now we've changed that vicious cycle to a virtuous cycle. And
Yeah.
now everything just goes up and up. Your performance instills your belief and your integrity and belief instill more performance, and it goes up. Now you're blowing the lid off your greatest potential.
Mm.
This is my story 3-4 times now.
Yeah.
And having gone through it and having run into these sticking points, I know that salespeople, I know that leaders, I know that business owners, I know that everybody who wants to reach their best, anybody who is interested in being the best version of themselves runs into these sticking points, and most of them don't know how to get out of them. I
Right.
didn't know how to codify how to get out of them until I started paying attention and doing that work myself. And then when I recognized myself in my clients in so many ways, I was so much better able to connect and to help steward them actually, kind of through this process.
Yeah. It's
I
so
said a
good.
lot there, Chris. I mean, I've been talking for way too long.
It's so good. I mean, if people aren't, and those that are listening and watching, if they're not asking questions, I mean, you're just such an incredible resource. When we talk about attitude and that's when, and I'll admit, Jeff, I've been there too. I every one of these gray hairs I own. Okay. And I've been there too, Jeff. I mean, I've had to pull myself through that. And it's like 10% of it or 90% of how you're going to react to a situation from an attitude standpoint is kind of what's pulled me through, those challenges that I've had in my life. And that's what we train for too. When we train, we say, when we're offering training, coaching, at least for Sales Arbiter, we're doing those types of things as well. We're saying, listen, it's up here, it's the 6 inches between your ears that you need to work on. Because a lot of times that's the stopping point. Like it's not just a roadblock. It's like a brick wall at times.
For sure.
I mean, that is, and it just resonates so loudly with me. How do you build, let's go back to, because you did say a lot, let's go back to that, building trust, building trust. And when you said, just a couple minutes ago, you're saying, when you start to lose confidence, and you're like, wow, should I just pack it up and find a different address or whatever that might look like? But how do you start to build that trust? Like, what are some ideas that you have when you're building trust with prospects or those that you're engaging with?
You have to pay attention to the little signs. You have to pay attention to the universe whispers to you, that pay attention to the signals that you see, pay attention to the things you're doing right. And if you're not doing anything right, or you don't understand what that is, and you've been with the company for a while, go sit down with your best customers and ask them why they buy from you. Ask them why they bought from you the first time. Ask them why they continue to buy from you. Those are different reasons. Right. Ask them to be a little bit more specific because you're trying to learn something about the way that you can serve their needs better. You're trying to learn how to attract more clients like them because you so appreciate, their relationship with you. Your best clients will be very happy to have that conversation with you. But start with the signals that are encouraging you.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if everything feels like a roadblock, well, what momentum carried you into that roadblock? Was it just your excitement? Was it just your fervor for this new gig that you just took on and, you want to go out there and set the world on fire? That's great. Well, what kindled that? Right.
Yeah.
Go back to, I say, remind yourself of what you know to be true. And, when I've run into roadblocks, it's been, all right, I'm stuck, but I'm really good at this, or I really want to be good at this.
Yeah.
And so where does that motivation come from? The I really want to be good at this. Why? Right. And I had the Why and the Buy podcast for 5 years and 472 episodes. And it was like, that was the question that we ended every interview with was, what is your why? We asked all of our guests that. And we asked that so that we could hopefully have have those answers in the cumulative response to that question, help our listeners understand their why a little bit better.
Yeah.
And when you understand your why, we say, when you know your why, your hows and your whats get much better. So why am I here? Why am I doing this? Where does this come from? Now, why do I know that I can be successful at it, right? I want to be successful and I know I can. What are those things that I know to be true? And if I know those things are true and I'm still interested, well, then there's a way to put this together. There's a way to accomplish this. I mean, think about all the things that we can do now because of dogged determination, right? We see rocket ships landing now safely, softly. It's like the coolest scientific thing I've ever seen. I jumped out of my chair when I saw the first rocket ship land on a platform in the middle of the ocean, right?
Yeah,
We had
yeah.
this breakthrough recently in science with a nuclear fusion reaction, something I
Mhm.
was told when I was growing up that would never happen, but the pieces fit. How do we put this together? You know, when you see people can do hard things, when you see people can do impossible things, and when you believe enough in yourself and your own ability to,
Mhm.
to pursue that,
Yeah.
you have to trust that. So when you start to trust, like, to go back and succinctly answer your question this time, remind yourself of what you know to be true.
Mhm.
And if you still want to accomplish that thing, and what you know to be true supports the concept, well, then you got to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And no step is too small so long as it's heading in the right direction and you keep taking steps. That's how people succeed.
Yep. No step is too small as long as you're heading in the right direction. Are you kidding me? I mean, this is gold, Jeff. It's absolutely gold. So let's talk a little bit more about, some ways that we should be rethinking our selling events. Like
Mhm.
when we're actually engaging with a prospect, how should we be rethinking that, Jeff, in your mind? What should we be thinking about on how to build a better connection with those potential prospects? Just share that with our audience or our viewers a little
2 ears, one mouth, simple math.
bit.
Um, you're not there to. I think if you approach every sales call with "What do I want to learn today?" instead of "What do I want to tell today?" or "What do I want to sell today?" I think you're going to start having better interactions. Stephen Covey said this. This was habit number 5: seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Mhm.
And most people know the 7 habits, and they've read the book or at least heard of the book.
Mhm.
But I listened to that book and I heard him say something, and he was so great too. And like this is like my favorite example of how cool an audiobook can be, because Covey didn't just read from a copy of the book. It felt like it was Uncle Stevie, sitting back with a microphone in his hand, his feet up on the desk, right? Like he just kind of
Right. Right.
lived these principles.
Yeah.
But he said something in habit 5, and he said, you cannot have influence over someone until they believe that they have influence over you.
Mm.
And I stopped, I thought about that, and I rewound it, and I listened to it probably 3 times. I'm like, what is he saying here? But then when it clicked, I finally got it. I was like, oh yeah, they need to feel heard. They need to feel validated. They need to feel as if they are part of the conversations. They're part of the discussion.
Mhm.
These sales calls are interactive.
Yeah.
And if you're not being interactive with your prospect, then why not just send the video? And I know there are a lot of salespeople out there right now trying to just send the video. Here's my demo. Here
Yeah.
we go. And I remember watching a demo of a sales technology. I'm not going to mention the name. It wouldn't be fair to them. I almost said the name anyway, but the demo, I watched a demo on their website to
Right.
prep for the demo that was coming to me. It was 8 minutes on the website. Dude delivered the same demo to me, almost verbatim,
Uh,
except added my name instead of generic company name or whatever. And it took twice as long.
right.
And I was like, I learned nothing here.
Mhm.
Right. And you didn't ask me a question.
Not
Right.
one.
So I think in order to make better use of our customer experiences, our customer exchanges, we need to remember to listen. But I think what that also means is be curious,
Mhm.
and don't just ask questions that you know the answer to so you can record your prospect saying the thing you want them to say. When you are curious, it means you're willing to be wrong.
Mhm.
It means you're asking a question you don't know the answer to, but you
Mhm.
really want to know the answer to because it's kind of important to move forward. That is bravery. Too many
Yeah.
salespeople are trying to be too machine oriented. They're trying
Mhm.
to accommodate for as many potential pitfalls and possibilities, and they're trying to control things as much as possible so that they can hopefully get to a repeatable outcome. That is exactly the way you turn your customers off.
That's right.
If your
That's right.
customers feel like they are being crammed through some kind of pipeline or process or something like that,
Mm.
they're going to be able to tell, they're going to be able to feel that, and they are not going to appreciate it.
Yeah.
But when you show up as someone willing to learn, If you show up willing to be wrong, curious, if you can have a direction for where these questions are going, but if you're showing that you need to learn things about your prospect because they need to understand where your questions are coming from,
Mm-hmm.
because you've been down this journey before, you've seen the pitfalls, you've seen the things that they need to avoid. You're kind of asking these questions as a means of, okay, I'm thinking about something you may not be thinking about. Let me identify for you whether or not that's something you even need to consider. Now all of a sudden we're building a completely different kind of a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think expectations by salespeople are so far off. They all think they need to sell something in every possible opportunity, to every possible person they talk to. And it's like, yeah, you're rushing things. You're forcing things. It's the way to get really good interaction, have better customer interactions, is to make it about the customer.
Yeah, make it about them. You're so right. And just, you know, inherently, people want to tell their own story. Like they want to tell their own story. And if you give them the opportunity to do that by asking good questions and really, really wanting to know the answer and engaging with them at a high level, and I wouldn't recommend this, with a loved one or your partner or your wife, but because I tried it one time and it doesn't work. I was in an argument, or we were having a disagreement. Maybe disagreement is better, and I said to my wife, I said, you're not listening. I go, you're listening with the intent to reply, but you're not listening with the intent of listening.
Mm-hmm.
And you can imagine how that went over, Jeff.
Yeah, how was dinner that night? How'd dinner taste?
Yeah, it was not. It was
Was
not.
that how'd it feel to be alone in that booth at the?
But isn't it? Isn't it so true that if we really put ourselves in that mindset, hey, I'm going to listen with the intent of listening, and not listen with the intent to reply. I mean, that opens up a whole nother avenue of what I call having a conversation with a prospect instead of just trying to sell them your wares, right?
Yeah. Yeah. What are you trying to learn, and where might your assumptions be incorrect?
Yeah.
That if you go in with that intention, with those two intentions,
Yeah.
right? It's like, where might I be wrong? And what can I possibly learn here? Your focus is going to be at an all-time level. You're going to be more likely to take notes. You're going to be more likely to ask those follow-up questions. If you ask a question that you already believe you know the answer to, what's your follow-up look like?
Exactly.
What is your in the moment mindful, like, oh, it's really interesting that you said that. So tell me a little bit more about it. No, when you get them to check the box with their words, you're just on to the next one. You mean to tell me that you don't believe your prospect can feel that? Come on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
So are you dealing with another human being here, or are you dealing with just another checklist of tasks to get through so you can make your number and whatever? And look, there's nothing wrong with that if you're okay with mediocrity. If you chose what was behind door number one in my explanation earlier of, you know what, mediocre. Listen, a mediocre success rate in sales still provides a lot of people with a pretty decent lifestyle.
Sure does.
You can have some fun. You can do some cool stuff. There is always room on a sales team for someone who will hit their number half the time. You won't be unemployed for long. You won't be bored for long. You'll find a new gig somewhere else. And these journeyman type professionals, like, we need them, right?
Yeah.
It's like that line from Caddyshack. The world needs ditch diggers too. Yeah, we need people to be mediocre in a lot of things. So, bless you. Keep moving along. But that's what I said. Like, if you're watching right now, if you're listening right now, you didn't come here to be mediocre. Do you work on self-improvement to reach the point of mediocrity? No. If you do, why? Well, you are wasting your time. You can be mediocre without my help, without your help. Right? Let's be honest here. Like, read the comics, watch the stupid TV, watch Seinfeld reruns or whatever. It's funny. It makes you laugh. Does it make you better? I don't. It's debatable, right? But like, there are so many other things that you can do outside of self-development and still be mediocre.
Yeah,
But
but
if
why?
you
But
want to,
Jeff, why? Why? I mean, all of these things like we talk about, and I mean, you have given so many golden nuggets during our podcast today. I love it, but and some of it is just common sense. I mean, to me, I don't know why. Maybe common sense isn't common, but to me, it's common sense. But here's the thing, what 2%, 5%, or the top 2% will do the things that we're talking about today.
Mhm.
I mean, what's your experience there?
Common sense is very common. People are terrified to use it. Common sense, and we're going back to what I mentioned at the beginning, and it's interesting. I'm making this connection in real time right now because I've never quite made, well, just like I just said, I've never made this connection. Common sense is that voice in the back of your head. It's that feeling in your belly. It's like, well, doesn't it make sense to do this? Yeah, but I don't see anybody else doing this. So I must be wrong. We're hardwired to fit in. And we don't like breaking away from the tribe. You don't want to be outside that circle at the campfire. You don't want to be on your own. But at some point, every top performer decides to be insubordinate. At some point, they trust their gut instead of
Oh my gosh,
just going along for the ride.
it's so good.
And that is what people need to do. They need to trust, because common sense is common. What is also common is people denying the fact that it's common sense.
Mhm.
And it's like, no, hold on. We're on to something here. And when you look around, it's that group thing. It's like, hey, wouldn't it make sense if we do this? And it's like, oh yeah. And she over there says, oh yeah, I was thinking the same thing. And this guy over there is like, no, you're right. And you get together, and then it's like, well, why aren't we doing this?
Mhm.
It reminds me, this is one of my favorite lines from any movie ever, is from Moneyball. And the scouts are all sitting around at the beginning of the movie, and Brad Pitt's being Billy Bean and trying to figure out why the Oakland A's are so terrible. And the line is, well, if he's such a good hitter, why doesn't he hit good? Right. And it's like,
right.
What are we missing here? Right. If this is the structure that's in place, why aren't we getting better results?
That's right.
And companies want repeatability. I appreciate that. You want to deliver consistent returns for your shareholders. You want to deliver consistent returns for your employees. Like, I get it. But when you sand down the edges on everything, when you make it so streamlined that everybody has to act a certain way, no one is doing their best work. So you will have consistent mediocrity, but you won't be doing your best.
Wow.
And I can appreciate that mindset. And if all you want, and a lot of companies, all they want is mediocrity.
Yeah.
That's fine. But again, I don't think those people are listening to this show.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to really do your best work, if you really want to blow the lid off your potential, start paying attention to that voice inside your head. Start trusting it. That intuition will never lead you wrong. It doesn't. And the only way you ever get into trouble is when you deny it. And you're like, no, it's this self-esteem issue. It's like, what could I possibly know? I'm just the new guy. The new guy who trusts their intuition, the new person who trusts their intuition, disrupts industries, disrupts the status quo, makes big things happen, makes new things possible, inspires new people they didn't know that they could reach.
Right.
Like, you got to decide what you want, and you have to be willing to do what either approach, regardless of which one you choose, is going to require of you. I think that I don't even recall. Look, I just got rambling there, Chris. And then
No, it was good. No, it's good stuff, man. I'm so glad. I'm glad you're doing it.
If he's a good hitter, why doesn't he hit good? If he's a good hitter, why doesn't he hit good?
I love that Chris found that. That's perfect.
Of course. That is so good. So, it's funny that you should say that, because those that they're not listening to this show. You said that twice now. They're not the ones listening to this show. Even when we set this show up for the Pipe Podcast every Monday at 8 a.m., the reason that we picked that spot, Jeff, was simply because we want it to happen before you start your week. Like, we want people to come to this, live event that are ready to get their week like started and kicked off, and like want to get motivated, because I love Mondays, and I love Monday mornings, because why? We have 5 full days to sell, right? We have 5 full days to interact with prospects and those and have good engagement with people that may want to do business with us, and build relationships with us. And And that's, and people are like, oh, thank God it's Friday. I hate Fridays. Like I have one day to be productive. And then I try to work over the weekend as well, to set my week up for the next week. Make sure that I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do, to follow maybe my own personal sales process, set up, but to make sure that I'm going to have a productive week. Right. And it's all about planning for me. It's all about planning. So tell me a little bit about your plan, Jeff. What's your plan for your organization and for yourself for 2023?
Oh, I'm going to set the world on fire.
That's it.
My plan, this concept of Sell Like You, it's kind of funny. It started, almost 2 years ago now. I had this idea. I put those 3 words together and I was like, that seems kind of catchy. Let me see what we've got here. I bought the domain. It was available. I don't know how in 2021 selllikeyou.com was available, but I bought it.
Right.
And I didn't quite know what to do with it because, Chris, it's more than, it's more than just using your own words, right? It's not like just wordsmith this a little bit, make it sound like you, and that'll be, but bring your personality. It really has something bigger behind it. And it has, I believe, has everything to do with that integrity component of it. No one's talking about integrity the way I am right now, which is further encouraging me to go down this path. But I'm really continuing to talk about this because it's reaching people. And even before this, even before I really knew how to deliver it, the things that I was touching on were hitting people square between the eyes. And they're like, Jeff, do something with that, right? The signs were there. When I go back and it's like, I don't know, is this too hokey? Is this too soft? Is it too squishy? Am I just telling people what they want to hear? And then all of a sudden people are coming to me like, oh, you're onto something, right? And I look at my colleagues and they're like, oh, I'm ashamed that I didn't get that first, right? Like it's that remind yourself of what you know to be true. So it's my goal, my pursuit this year to write the book and to really continue to evangelize and develop this message. And, season 4 of the Rethink the Way You Sell podcast is all about sell like you. That's the theme. And so what I'm doing is taking these concepts like integrity, like belief, like storytelling, like your sales process, like what does rethink the way you sell mean? And I'm taking these things and I'm breaking them down into their component parts and exploring them, and also bringing people on so I can get their stories, and helping people again relate to the other people out there who have succeeded, but in a way that they're inspired by those people, not just trying to copy those people, because we don't want to be alone. So when you realize that you're not alone because other people have faced that same terrifying decision as you,
right,
you just find yourself as a part of a different tribe. And there's connectivity there. And come on, jump in, man. The water's warm, right? And success is great. And personal challenge and personal growth is inspiring. And these are the things that people like us do, right? And I think a lot of salespeople are stuck in this mediocre mindset of, well, people like us at this company, we do things like this. Okay, well, people like us, the top performers who have done and gone through the struggle, who have chosen, like you and I have, to help other people through their journey. Yeah, there's another group of us. We like it better over here. Come join us.
Yeah.
Right. You're not going to be on your own. You're just choosing a different group to emulate, choosing a different group to assimilate to, choosing a different group to learn from. And that's my big professional mission in 2023 is to continue to develop these thoughts with help. I love the conversations like this. I've made 2 or 3 connections myself today by just having this conversation with you. And, we're that's what 2023 is all about for me. I want to take this and I want to help a lot of people with it. And incidentally, it's going to be like this in 24 and probably again in 25 and again in 26, because this is something that doesn't go away.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So let's talk about what does, and you touched on this a little bit for yourself and for your organization, Jeff, but what does an organization, what does a company really need to do in 23 if they're looking to grow, their organization, grow their business? What do they need to focus on, or what are the couple things that you really believe that they better be focusing on, or else they're going to be left behind?
They need to look inward and they need to start paying attention. We've talked about looking inward from a sales rep standpoint. I think sales managers, sales leaders need to look inward as well. And not just in the mirror. Your reps know what to do. They're not doing it. Why? That's the inward that you need to that's the investigation that you need to do. And I think, for the last 50 years or so, we as a profession have done a really good job of boiling selling down to a science. We know exactly what needs to happen. In many cases, we know the order in which it needs to happen. And we have given dozens, if not hundreds of methods for people to go out and make those things happen. It's not a knowledge issue. It's not a training issue. This is a cultural issue. And so as a sales rep, great salespeople create environments to buy. Great sales leaders create environments to sell. If your team is not performing, it's because you as the leader have not created the right environment for them to sell. And so you have to look inward. And my practice, where it's going, is much less in terms of, hey, let me train you on my frameworks. Yeah, I have pretty good frameworks. And hey, they've worked for me. They've worked for a lot of people over the years. But it's not because you need a framework. It's because you're stuck. What is going on? Why are you stuck? Excuse me. What I like to do is go in to an organization and dig around and ask questions and be curious and aim to learn things and figure out where these sticking points are. Because, the solution of, well, bring training in or have them all read a book or, the beatings will continue until morale improves. Like, none of this stuff works because you're not paying attention to your people. So the answer for individuals and organizations moving forward through 2023 is to look inward rather than just trying to apply the same solutions, quote unquote, that have been applied in the past.
That's great. That's great. All right. One last question before we get to the Sales Arbiter 7, Jeff. So, how do you, I've got a long list: author, speaker, sales trainer, mentor, coach, sales guru. I mean, how do you do it all? How do you do it? And then you're going to write a book this year too. How do you do it all?
One of the downfalls of kind of fighting, my own intuition and things like that is trying to figure out how to describe yourself. So it's like, am I a sales coach? Well, sure, but I don't fit the definition. I coach salespeople, and I'm really good at that, but I don't fit the definition of what, you would, the picture next to the dictionary term of sales coach, right? Same with sales trainer, right? It's like, yeah, I train salespeople. I have training meeting, here in a little bit to install some new methodologies and help people, wrap their arms around that. I'm really a consultant, but consultants with so many out of work salespeople have called themselves in between jobs for forever. It's like, well, is that the word I want to use? No, that's actually what I do. So I coach people, I train people, I speak because that's one of the ways that you help get the message out. I write, I have a podcast. My wife likes to refer to me as, being a hummingbird. Just constantly in motion. Right. But these ideas, these concepts, I won't tell you that they flow through me. They definitely come to me. And I've told people this before. There's nothing that's made me a better salesperson than writing. And the ability to put my words down in black and white in a way that, especially trying to make sure that there isn't anything left open for interpretation, that focusing and just command of the concepts comes by writing. I have furthered that now that I podcast. I wouldn't call myself a podcaster, but I've done more than 1,000 episodes, so like I get on podcasts because I like to think out loud. And sometimes that comes through and helps me. Well, other people tell me they like it too. So might as well record it and press publish, right? So that's kind of why so many of those additional terms that you read, are there: writer, author, podcaster, blogger, video vlogger, guy, whatever, like right. I'm Jeff. Nice to meet you. You can find me. I'm not hard to discover. But yeah, for me, 2023 and every year really is about focusing those efforts more, and not just making them more repeatable, not just making them scalable, but how do I make sure that I'm focusing on more central concepts rather than disparate concepts? Because
Mhm.
all of those titles, I get a little red faced and a little embarrassed by that. To me, that represents a lack of focus that has held my progress back.
Mm.
And I got to get better at that. Right. That's
Yeah.
my own journey to get better at that. So the answer, how do you do it all? My answer is probably not as well as I could if I were a little tighter. But that's the journey. That's where we're going.
Wow, it's great. It's great advice for everybody that's listening and watching as well. So it's good stuff. Good stuff. All right, we're going to jump into the sales. This is the only reason why people even watch this show, Jeff. I'll just
Okay. Pay no attention to the previous 40 minutes.
Right. The other 40
Yes.
minutes. Yeah. But the sales arbor 7, it's meant to, and and it's based on, and I talked about this, inside the Actors Studio, James
Mhm.
Lipton. This is kind of a tribute to him.
Cool.
And I close every show with these, 7 questions. And so this is what people really want to know about you, Jeff.
Cool.
So I'll just start off. What is your favorite word, Jeff?
Oh man. My favorite word. Wow. It's not wow. My favorite word. I'm gonna right now. My favorite word's integrity, because it means so many things to so many different people, and it's
Mhm.
something I've been focusing a lot on. So let's go with that.
Integrity, like it. And you're going to focus on that in your book as well, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's great. I love it. What is your least favorite word?
Mm. No.
Spoken like a true sales guy. I love it. No, just no.
No. Yes.
That's beautiful. All right. What's something that could make your day?
Something that makes my day is when I get a message from somebody that says, Jeff, you changed the way I look at things, and I see more potential in myself than I did before. I got a message over the weekend. I wish someone a happy birthday. They sent a screenshot of a concept that I laid out in my podcast, and they're putting it to work. And I'm like, like awesome, right? I got another message from someone I interact with on a regular basis at the gym, and they're like, and I just paid them a compliment because they won an award. And she came back. She's like, I needed to hear that today. Thank you. Right.
Wow.
It's just
Right.
knowing when something makes my day is some kind of reminder that I'm making a difference. That will make my day every time.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that. So,
Mhm.
what's something that could ruin your day, Jeff?
Rain on my golf trip.
Like straight for the whole time that you're
Like
there.
just like unplayable rain on my
Yeah.
golf trip. That would ruin my day. There's not a whole lot on a regular day that will there's not a whole lot on a regular day that'll ruin. It ruins a tough word. I'm pretty adaptable, but something that takes me out of my planned routine. I like to be able to count on things. I like to be able to move forward. Like when the kids are home from school, it's
Yeah.
tougher to get work done. And that frustrates me a little bit. And that's a me problem. I got to figure out, how to better deal with that. And I've learned some ways, we have a really nice library. I can go work there. It's quiet. But my 13 and 11-year-olds are not.
Right.
Things like that, things that kind of throw me out of routine. But I like to think I'm pretty adaptable. So ruining a day is really hard to do.
That's great.
But if it's thunderstorming, through my 8:30 a.m. tea time at my favorite golf course,
you're gonna be
it's a
upset
bummer.
about that. Yeah, that's right. That's right. All right. What's a sound or noise that you love?
Oh, a sound or a noise that I love. I love hearing my kids' voices. I love hearing which is interesting, contrary to my last, answer to that question. When I come home, I love hearing the sound of my wife and my kids. I love knowing that I'm home. Those are great noises.
That's great. So opposite of that, going in the opposite direction, what sound or noise do you hate?
Oh, my kids yelling at each other saying, stop, stop. Yeah, just over and over. Yeah, you can have that. If I never heard that again, Like if there was a mute button for that, that'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah. Okay, good. All right. One last one. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
This is really hard to narrow down. And I'll
Mhm.
tell you why. I think people who are really good at things are
Mhm.
worth watching. I will watch the best basket weaver in the world
Yeah.
weave baskets. Like I am just so curious and interested in how people do other things well.
Yeah.
It would be impossible for me to nail this down to one. What would I try? What would I pick? Would I like to attempt, or would I like? Oh, would I like to attempt? Man, I like building stuff. I'm going to say
Yeah.
construction worker because I do like building stuff. I'm going to say
Yeah.
landscape architect
Landscape
because
architect.
I'm interested in looking at that stuff, but I have no interest in actually putting it together. But then when I watch people do it,
Yeah.
like both of my neighbors had concrete patios installed in their backyards this year, and I caught myself working outside just watching.
Yeah.
What are they doing? That is so cool. Oh, I get why they're doing that. And this, like, just synthesizing all that stuff. I'm so interested and intrigued by all the things that people do. It's tough to pick one, but that one's most topical most recently. So we'll go with that.
Well, listen, it has been great having you on. I mean, the time just flies by, I know we're what, 45 minutes in or something like that, but listen, it's been great having you on. I saw the comments from our listeners, and but I was so into like listening to your stories and taking in a lot of the information. And I've got to tell you, I see you there, Mylan. I saw Perry Morgan. I saw Dan Jordan.
Yeah, I saw Dan's.
Come up. There's a bunch of people that came up today. And so Murillo's there. It's awesome. Yeah, thank you for the comments and thank you for watching today. Hey, I couldn't be more excited to have you on the show, and just great to talk sales with you on the Pipe Podcast today, Jeff. Thanks so much. And like I always say, keep selling and have fun doing it. Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon. This is the reason why you should buy. And we're not asking the most important question, the reason why it was important for them, in their heart of hearts. Like, that's a sale. Then we're going to see results, the mindset. Going into every opportunity, saying to yourself, I would love to have the business, but I don't need the business. When they talk about building their organization just through referral, that means they're missing it